So today we will talk about bootstrapping versus fundraising, and I have a very simple question first. Everybody is familiar with the term bootstrapping or not? Like who is aware of what bootstrapping means? Okay. So for everyone else, I will just give a quick definition and we will get deep into it. But the idea of bootstrapping is the idea that when you build your company, you don't necessarily need external funding. And because of that, there is an opposition between bootstrapping a company, meaning making a company grow only using the own revenue of the company, versus fundraising, that means attracting external investor to grow faster and to be big faster. So there is a lot of bootstrap company and that have been bootstrapped for a very long time, that become big as a bootstrap company that I'm sure you are not aware of. Like the few very famous example is GitHub. GitHub bootstrap until getting to the 1 billion valuation mark. When they fundraised for the first time was at 1 billion valuation. So to say how big it was, AppSumo, a smaller company. I don't know if you all know AppSumo, but it's a tip and tricks company that sell online things. It's a company where you can get discount for online services, things like that. MailChimp, a subscription company that sells mail servers to help you manage your newsletter, things like that. Still until now a bootstrap company. Braintree 99 Design, and of course Basecamp, WeWork, and all of this movement of companies. So what is interesting with this list is that none of them have been a bootstrap consulting company. So one of the things that is very common in the United States is to say that the way to bootstrap a company is to do consulting at the beginning, to provide services instead of product, and use that service money to develop your own product and your own R&D and get to a point where you are comfortable enough so you can switch to a 100% product model. That's a very common bootstrap strategy, but it's not the only one. There is bootstrapped company that had the luck to have founders that can live off money for a long time and get to a point where they are comfortable enough so they can launch their product. And launching their product at that time was getting revenue on day one and making it profitable very fast. So I'm not talking today so much about the consulting strategy because, to be honest, I have the feeling that trying to be a consultant to get money and get a product in the second step never works. Like, there is few exceptions for that, of course. There is always exception. But on a big macro view, most of the time we end up bad. And for very simple reasons. The first reason is that it's hard to stay focused when you have clients. So what is the problem with consulting strategy is that your clients will need a lot of custom things. And so you know how it works. Everybody say, oh, I will develop something custom, and it will become used by everyone, and custom becomes so customized that at the end no one can use it, only the client, and you end up becoming a service provider, and it takes out so much energy of you. And big clients are so good at that, you know, taking out energy of small things, that you end up dead before knowing that things are going wrong. So that's not to say that there is no service company that can be built, that are big, profitable, good, blah, blah, blah. Like, there is a lot of way to build a lot of business. But what interests us here is about building product company that scale, company that reach a level where they are self-sustainable, and that doesn't come from a service company or a consulting company. So one of the things I want to say first is that bootstrapping is hard. And you will see why it's hard. There is, like, of course, if you have the opportunity to fundraise a lot of money, very easy, it will always be nicer to have all this mean to an end than bootstrapping your company. But the experience of bootstrapping a company, especially at beginning, is very, very rewarding. Because there is not such a thing as a pleasure than having the feeling that people will pay for what you do. Like there is a lot and lot of pleasure that entrepreneurs don't get at beginning because they don't understand it, but having a client that is happy with a product is something extraordinary. Because you can fundraise, but fundraisers look like, you know, cheap drugs. You go high very fast, you go down faster. And for a simple reason is that it's not because you fundraise that you proved anything. Like, of course, it's an important step. Of course, it's important and it can be useful, but it doesn't mean anything. You can fundraise and bankrupt. You can fundraise and succeed. You can fundraise and go just flat, and you wonder why you fundraise. You know, for example, we have a company at the family, they fundraise and they never use the euro of the fundraising. And not because they are very, very profitable, because they never made money and never lose money. I think it's one of the most horrible situations you can be in. Like, it's kind of a dead walking zone. You are not alive, but you are not dead. And you don't know like what happened to you, and you don't have any idea of how to spend the money you fundraise to. So that kind of situation can be very hard. And on the other hand, when you have a company that have a growing revenue numbers, it's very, very impactful on everybody. Because it makes employee happy, it makes shareholder happy, it makes everyone inside the company and around yourself happy. Like, he has this feeling that everyone will believe that what you are doing will be here for a long time. It will not just be this short-term experiment. And this is why bootstrapping is so good for your company. Also, you have to understand that building a company that successfully bootstrap is one of the best ways to negotiate hard with investors. Because bootstrapping a company doesn't mean that you will never fundraise. It just means that the day you will be able to fundraise, you will do it in your own terms, and you will do it having the power on your side. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think you can read thousands of articles about fundraising, but in every fundraising tips and article, we should write a disclaimer at the start. And that disclaimer can look like that. If you are a company with huge traction, huge revenue, and huge attraction from everyone, that advice applies. If you are a sucker and no one wants your company, forget everything that is read below and just try to fundraise in whatever terms. Because the reality is that there is not such a thing as a negotiation if you don't have leverage. Like if you go and say, look, I don't have traction, I don't have user, I don't have revenue, but my idea is incredible, and so I need a lot of money, people can believe you. They can believe that actually it's great, that you are incredible, but it will be in their own terms. Because they will be the only one to believe it. Because it will never, never be something like a consensual opinion. Because you will always find people that agree and people that doesn't agree. In America, we say money talks. And I love that expression because it comes down to something very simple, is that if you have a company that is successful early, that gets real user, real traction, real revenue, you are in position where you own your own destiny. You can choose your own term, you can choose your own rules, you can decide what is acceptable and what is not, and you are in position where you don't have to accept things you are uncomfortable with, because you have the leverage of infinity. And leverage of infinity is very powerful, because at every moment you can go out from the table and say, I don't feel well with your terms, so I will not fundraise. Thank you very much and see you later. And there is nothing more powerful than saying that to someone that wants to invest in you, because he will do whatever he needs to do to get inside your deal, and that will be a cool thing. Of course, bootstrapping a company means for a lot of people that they will start with nothing. And that's what is hard with the exercise of starting with nothing. So I think you are not a lucky generation because in my time, not long time ago, but 12 years ago, when people start companies, we didn't have something like TechCrunch or I don't know which press that talk all day long about the fundraising of everyone. And you know, like, our biggest problem at the family is that every single entrepreneur that joins the family always has the same first question. So I need to fundraise and I wonder how you can help us. And our answer is always the same. We don't help on fundraising. We are not a fundraiser. And I'm so sorry for you. There is no chance you fundraise. And a lot of people find that harsh and don't understand our value because they are like, oh, if you cannot help for fundraise, what are you about? And the question, why they think that? They think that because they have the feeling that the story of an entrepreneur is, I got an idea, I fundraise, I use that money, and I become successful. You know that story that you read all day long in every article, in every press. And why do we tell this story? Because it's easy to write, a lot of click, and a lot of shares. For example, the family fundraised 2 weeks ago, and we said that on TechCrunch. So the truth is that we fundraised in last June. So like we was like, oh, it will be cool. We are doing things in English. Let's make some PR. Let's say we fundraise. Let's make it public. So first thing, 2,000 shares, 600,000 view on the article, and the article took maybe 15 minutes to write. Yeah, the family fundraise, they are cool. There is some skepticism. It will be great. Yeah. And everybody like, click, shares. And you don't imagine how many people we don't like send us email. Like all the people we hate and usually are like, we don't like the family, they write to you. Oh, congratulations, we are so proud of you. And you're like, yeah, you are so proud. So, so in my list, no email for 2 years, an email when we fundraise. And you know, I'm not talking about every ex-boyfriend of Alice that ping her back. I'm not talking about mine, etc. Like the fundraising have this instantical, magical moment on people, but it's vanity, because the truth is that the fundraising announcement is already spent at the family. Everybody imagine that we have 6 million on the bank account, and actually everything is already spent. So it never gives you a real view of where the company is head of, and what will be the next step. It's just storytelling, and it just puts you in a situation that you believe that's the story. And the problem is that everybody lies. Like the first rule you learn as an entrepreneur is that in the press, you should never say the reality. You should always say what people want to hear. I will give you an example. Let's say you're an entrepreneur. You start with an idea. The idea is not really good. You do a product, no one come. You do a pivot, a first pivot, a second pivot, a third pivot, and you broke up with your founder and start something new with someone new. And because you have a lot of determination, 3 years later on the road, you end up doing something that got some traction and some fundraising. And the journalists come and tell you, how did you get that idea? Wrong answer will be like, yeah, so 3 years ago, I wanted to do a startup with that guy, but we broke up and blah, blah. And you will tell all the story. The right answer is, you know, a month ago, we had this vision for the world. And we had think that there is a problem to solve. And we did it. And instantly, you have been a great success. And we are so happy for that. And we are looking forward for the next step. That's a good answer. And is it a lame? Is it a shame that we are all like that? Of course, maybe, but we are not here to talk about human nature. We are here to talk about what is the efficient way to be a good entrepreneur. And as a good entrepreneur, you should only focus on what is great about you. And everything else should be totally hidden. But the problem, the kind of perverse effect that it has on people, is that everyone in this room believes what is written in the press. And you look at it and you benchmark yourself and you do the biggest mistake that everyone do. It's to compare your inside to the outside of others. I think there is not a biggest mistake that people can do about how they take decision than looking over and saying, oh yeah, that guy after 3 months, he fundraised 6 million. And everybody internally knows that actually it took 5 years and it was horrible and a lot of work. But of course, that's not the story we will say, because that's not a story that sells. And people forget that the biggest quality of an entrepreneur is the capacity of starting from nothing. And to start from nothing, it needs a lot of methods. And if you look at every great true story of entrepreneurs, it's people that are ready to do impossible things and make it happen. So how do you do that? The first thing is that, again, like everything in entrepreneurship, you need to divide your space horizon between being pre-product market fit and post-product market fit. And the first step as an entrepreneur is to reach product market fit. It's to reach a level where you have the certitude that what you are doing is useful, create value, people love it, quality is enough, ready to sell, and that tipping point moment where you feel that you can be all in. So in that first phase, if you compare, you know, there is always this article that say, oh, you should be cheap with your startup. And few blog posts later, you are like, oh, you should spend as much as you can. And you're like, okay, so does it make sense? And actually, again, you need a disclaimer. You know, like you need a disclaimer at starting of article saying, this article is intended to be read only by people that reach product market fit. And it will help. People will be like, ah, okay, it's not for me. I didn't reach that. So they will not read this kind of crazy article saying you should go all in. And what should be saying, like what should be the advice before product market fit? The advice is very simple. Be cheap. Be as cheap as you can. Like even if you have a little bit of money, the best advice we always give entrepreneurs is don't use it. Like yesterday I saw a young project. They are lucky enough to have a family with means, and they receive 150,000 each to start the project. So they had a personal budget of 300,000 to start the project. And my first advice was wire back the money, or put it on a saving account and don't know that it exists. Because you know what will happen is that they will spend the 300,000 making mistakes, and when they will have learned, they will be like, oh, now we know where we need the money. And they will have no money left. And that's what happened with every budget of entrepreneurs at the beginning. They have a budget, and it's called the mistake budget. And the mistake can have been done for free. So in the time where you are learning, in the time where you are doing mistake, just do it for free. And to do that and to achieve that, you need to understand that it's a force, it's a strength to have all this power without money. Because being without money creates a lot of creativity. It creates a situation where you will be forced to use your imagination to solve problems, and you will never spend money that you don't have. So you will always be forced to find hacks and tricks and things that otherwise you will not. The very famous story about that, unfortunately, it's not a true story, but you know, never give any fact the opportunity to kill a good story. So the incredible story about that is during the space race, America vs. Soviet Union. And you know, the first man going to space discovered that you cannot write with a pen in space because you need gravity so the ink goes down. That's how a pen is built for. So during that time, in the meanwhile, NASA spent a lot of money using magnetophone, sending back to Earth. People write down notes and sending back the notes in space. And they did spend a lot of R&D to build a pen that works in space. And now you can go in NASA shops and buy that pen. During that time, Soviet Union was using pencil because pencil works in space. And so actually, that's not exactly the story, but there is truth behind that. They don't really record things in space, but they really develop a pen that works in space. And they never think about using a pencil. Why? Because too much budget. And having too much budget makes you stupid. I know it's counterintuitive. I know that everyone thinks that the problem can be solved by money, but actually the real good test to know if you are an entrepreneur or not is to be like, okay, I don't have any money, what can I do? Another example of that I find fascinating is the first Apple computer. You know, Apple II, Apple I, Steve Wozniak, he built a computer in his garage. Like, building a computer in the garage at that time is like, if someone here say, look, I will build a spaceship in my garage. It will be the same. But the funny thing is that they discovered so much ideas and hacks and things that have been used at Apple for years because they did not have money. And don't have money create a necessity of creativity. And if you cannot reach that level where you solve your problem, you are failing at the first entrepreneurial test. And you should be honest with yourself and tell yourself, if I cannot start something without anything, it's maybe because I'm not the kind of people that start something. And you should be worried that your need for money is important. No one needs money to start. You can need money to grow. You can need money to change step. You can need money to change your time frame. Instead of taking 5 years to succeed, money will help you succeed in 1 year. But money should not impede you of working on and moving on. Like, it's very important to understand that money is just a tool and it can be useful, but it's not a necessity. One of the things that is very important to stay cheap is that you need to be very saving oriented. Like, a lot of things can be saved if you are smart, and a lot of things can be get at that level that otherwise you will not get. And let's talk about a counterintuitive thing. You know, at the beginning of the family, it was so easy to hire. You know why? Because no reputation and no money. If you look every single early employee at the family, they are the best employee we had. You know why? Because they came for something very pure. They came because they saw something that no one else saw. Because they came before it was famous, before being in TechCrunch, before the fundraising, before the video on YouTube, before everything. So the only attraction was a deep love for the mission and a deep love for what we do. And because at that time we did not have any money, we did not pay them. And of course not for a long time, because you cannot stay like that forever. But the first 3 months they work it for free. It's 3 months that we will have an eternal return on, because it was a kind of energy that the project needed at the beginning. So of course, that cannot stay forever. You cannot hire 1,000 people like that, for sure. But the first people are so important that not having money is a strength. Like, if you look at every project that fundraise easy at beginning, the kind of people they attract are crap. Because there is no reality behind the fundraising, so there is not something substantial that people can be attracted by, but there is the fundraising. They attract the worst people on earth. People attract only by signal and social proof. Because, of course, when the company becomes big and they fundraise big, there is something substantial. It's successful, the mission is clear, people can come, be great executives and great employees. But that's very particular situation when people fundraise without any track record and just with money because they have connection of friends and they are ready to pay salaries. It's always, always, always bad. Because you cannot attract real good employees and you attract people that are driven by social proof. The other key, of course, at the beginning is do things that don't scale. So again, you can read Paul Graham article about that. In my opinion, best essay ever written by Paul Graham. It's a very simple idea that every entrepreneur wants to start his company at scale. And the problem is that it's impossible. And he has this image, he say, starting a startup is like starting an old car. You know, you have the manual beginning, and it's really hard, and you need to put a lot of energy. And at the moment, the engine will crack down and it will run by itself. A startup is exactly the same thing. The first step is that you need a lot of manual energy, and a lot of things can be get down to things that don't scale. So we will come back on the things that don't scale, but just to give you a few tips. For example, again, I had this company yesterday, very good example. They want to sell toys for children. And they created incredible toys. And so someone creating an incredible toy company, what is the classical plan? Classical plan will be, I have an idea for incredible toys. I will build 1,000 of them. To build 1,000 of them, I need a branding. To get a branding, I will spend a lot of energy building a story and an image and blah, blah, blah. I will launch a website and people will come and buy. And of course, it never happens like that. Like you can do whatever you want. It's so hard to make anyone buy anything online that if you start that way, it will never work. The good methodology of do things that don't scale is that I told them, you should forget your 1,000 toys, you should forget your fundraising, you should go and build with your hand 10 toys and sell it to your friends. And if your friends buy in a week 10 toys, the week after you do 20. And the week after you do 40. And the week after you do 80, etc. And at what point you will need to build more and more structure under the way. And if you want a good image about that, is think about how to become a rock star for real. If you want to be a music celebrity, you have two choices. Choice one, you go to Singing with the Star, or I don't know what TV show, I don't know the name in English. You go on stage, you have a jury of people that will have 30 seconds of intention for you, and they will say you are good or you are bad. And I never understand how many people need the judgment of others. Like if you want a mystery for me in life, is why everybody is always looking for external validation. Like why? Like why someone that is singing from 20 years, that loves to sing, wants to go on public humiliation, and having 4 people that maybe are drugged half of the time and don't have a real time span, that say it's good or it's bad, and just do the show because you are a freak. Like, that way, what happens is that you will have a winner, and what will happen to that winner? He will go up faster than anyone will go up, and he will go down faster than anyone go down in this industry. Because there will be a new season, and there will be a new star, and no one give a fuck. If you want to become a real rock star, how it works, like how every legend in music are born. It's a bunch of people playing in a garage, and they don't really know what they are doing. And you know, their friends are suckers like them, and they come and listen to them. And one day it starts to be a little better than the other day, and they tell their friend, oh, you know, Saturday I go to Miles' house and we will listen to him play music. And little by little, one day a guy will come and say, oh, my uncle have a restaurant, you should play in that restaurant, and you go and play in a strange restaurant. But in that restaurant, there is someone that knows someone that will bring you to a bigger restaurant. And from that restaurant, you will do your first show. And from that first show, one day you will do a bigger show. And faster than you will realize, you will have a stadium full of people, and you will be here for 10 years. That's the real way great artists are born. Exactly same thing with writers. Like you can go and write a book, or you can work hard and publish things, and one day it becomes a book, and one day it becomes something as a phenomena, because people will love it and talk to each other. So there is not things like shortcut, and doing things that don't scale is the best way to know if what you are doing works or not. And there is thousands of ways to launch your company in a day. Like, it's always the same story. People have like this opinion that they need 3 months, 6 months, 1 year to launch their company. But actually, you can play the tool and play the exercise to say, okay, let's say in tomorrow it's the end of the world. And you don't have anything to do else than launching your company. no sex allowed. What do you do? Like, how you do that? What will be your first step? And there is always a step. You can do a spreadsheet. You can sell it offline. You can go in the street and launch your company. But that is the right methodology. The right methodology is that you should be able to be on market on day first. If it takes more than 1 day to launch your company, it's obvious that most of the time you will fail. And if you need to program things and if you need to build things, there will always be a way to turn around and find, derivate version of that will be quicker online and that you can test and maybe you can fake it. Like one of the strategies is to fake it until make it. Thousands of strategies, but the important thing is that you need to be smart about them and you need to understand that building a company is not about faking the entrepreneurship. It can be about faking product, but not faking the methodology, and you need to be very disciplined about what you do. Let's talk about finance, because finance is a very singular function and a very important one when you bootstrap. Because when you bootstrap, what happens is that you have only your revenue as a budget for growth, and so you need to be very, very smart about how to use it. And there is few strategies that people don't realize how powerful they can be. The first one, and from far my favorite one, that every bootstrap entrepreneur should use is called pay with risk. So what it means to pay with risk? You have to understand that cash now is cheaper than cash later. What does it mean? It means that if you can save 100 euro now, and to save that 100 euro now costs you 1,000 euro in 10 years, is so cheap to do that than the other way around. Because every single dollar you will save in the phase where you are bootstrapping is a dollar that will accelerate your growth and will make you alive, default alive, faster. So let's take an example that I love because it happens so many times. Let's say you do a consumer company and you sell shoes. And selling shoes online, you need an incredible branding. And to get the incredible branding is mandatory because you are in a field where people are very, very intransigent about the fact that the branding is important. So you have no choice. And you need to invest 100,000 euro in that branding. No other choice. That's the cost you will never find cheaper. One of the strategies that entrepreneurs use is that they try to find a way to get it cheaper. That's the worst strategy. Because cheap work, shitty work. Like if people are famous and well-known and can invoice very high fees for services, it's for a reason. It's because their time is limited, and if you want the best, you have to pay the best. But you will tell me, okay, but you told us like 5 minutes ago we need to save, we need to be smart, blah, blah, blah. So here's the strategy. You go and you say to this creative director or creative designer, and you tell him, look, I have the best startup on earth, and you know what? It will be really, really successful. So because I know it will be successful, I will take a risk. Instead of paying you 100,000, like your actual price, I will pay you 30,000 now, because I cannot spare more. But the difference of 70,000, I will pay it 5 times, or 4 times, or 3 times, or 2 times after that milestone. So if your design helped me to reach a milestone that you define, fundraising, product launch, sales, name it, whatever milestone, you say, I will overpay your actual fees. So you see, you take work now and you defer the payment to a moment where you are dead, and that's fine because if you are dead, you don't owe anything to anyone. But if you are still alive, it will be cheap to pay that because it will have been an investment. And if you look that way of thinking, you will realize that most entrepreneurs try to do the opposite. They try to get cheap work. But here, it's not cheap work because it's more expensive than the actual work. So you can even ask for more. You can even be in a leverage and a relationship saying, you are not making me a favor. I'm making you a favor. And that is so strong. And if you are smart, like, of course, if you end up with millions of debt to pay at some point because you said that to everyone, you will not bootstrap for far. But if you are smart about with who to use that, it can make things impossible possible. The very common example we use at the family is for very regulated industry. You know, there is a lot of industries that are so heavily regulated that the first cost will be $500,000 or $1 million in lawyers. It exists. It's like, we had that case so many times, especially in finance, where you need so much legal advice to begin with that people will fundraise just to pay lawyers. So lawyers are smart people. You go to see them and you say, look, it's $1 million bill. I will pay you $2 million. But you will take a risk. You will take the risk it doesn't happen. And you know what is extraordinary with this strategy? Is that the service provider you are working with get aligned with you. Because if it doesn't work, if you don't succeed, you never pay them. So they have this kind of crazy incentive to make you work. And they will have invested so much of their time and their money that they will be in a situation where they have no other choice. Never do that with equity. One of the advice that people say is pay people with equity. Paying people with equity is so dumb and so stupid because equity is forever. Like if you tell someone, I will pay you double the price, 2 million, and you say I will pay you in equity, if the companies end up being valued 1,000 more, you will have end up paying 200 million for that. So people have the feeling that because they did not give cash, it did not cost them something. But the truth is that the equity deal is, if your company is successful, is much better than cash. So stay to cash, stay to debt, and be smart about who you are doing debt with and who you are not. Another thing that always surprised me is that startups are worried to pay late. And you know, it's a great industry to have clients in because startups are so strange with that, is that startups always pay their bill first. For many reasons. First, nice people, inexperience, and a lot of budget. You know, when you fundraise and you have money on the account, you don't really manage your cash flow. You have a budget and you spend it. And so people are like, yeah, it's fine, I can pay fast. But the problem of doing that is that you don't train your team to the right methodology to the time where you will need the cash flow management strategy. So there is one expression is collect early, sell high, buy low. Is that and pay so late. Pay as late as you can and drive people crazy. You know, in big companies, there is very strategy for that. They pay people to create very complex process to get you pay. It's not because they need the process. It's that they know that most of people don't know how to deal with the process and making the invoice paid late. Of course, as a startup, you cannot really do that, but you can create a fake accounting service. You can say, yeah, I don't know, my accounting service lost, and you can create an email and talk with yourself. Please, can you pay them? And the accounting service say, yeah, we will, but we need the form 1021. Oh, really? The form 1021? How do you do that? And like, be smart with that and be shameless. Like, if I can tell you something, of course, if it's your friends, if it's another startup, you can be smart. It's not because you pay late as a strategy that you always pay late. For example, we have, I think the best entrepreneurs we have in the family for that is Save. I don't know how this guy pay their bills. I don't know if they ever pay their bills. And they use that as a strategy to grow faster. Because every bill they pay late is a bill, is the money that they can use for something else. And having daily revenue is something very great. So when they fundraise, I remember the number 2 at Save saying to the investor, so the investor did the joke, oh, now you can pay your supplier, you fundraise. And the guy was like, are you crazy? Like now I can even ask for more delay because I have money in the bank. And the guy was like, oh my God, this guy is crazy. But that's the way you manage a great company because you use the cash of your suppliers as a way to grow, and it's one of the best cash ever. So if you are smart about that, and if you are very, very aggressive, it can bring you very, very far. And of course, there is things that you always pay early. Your employee, your people, your very important supplier, your strategic. You need to be smart between what you pay late and what you don't. Because you don't have other choice. That's the way business are built. And you know, I know it seems unnice, and I know it seems artless, but the problem is that everybody will pay you late. Like if you pay early and get paid late, you will be the bank to everyone. And your growth will be limited because everybody do that. So until the time that change, and it will not change, you need to play by that rules and you need to be tough. If you want to fight against toxicity, you need to understand that one of the best strategies you can have is to skip the seed. If you can reach to a point where you can go directly in Series A, your life as a company will be very different on 3 levels. First level, the level of ownership you will get will be exponentially higher at the end game than the ownership you will get if you do a seed round. Because seed round costs a lot. In Europe, a seed round costs between 20 to 30% of your company, even 40% in certain cases, for very small amount of money, between 300,000 to $1 million. That money can be built with revenue. And if you can skip that, you will go directly to 5 to 10 million round, and you will spend between 20 to 30%. And so you see, instead of losing twice 20 to 30%, you will lose it only once, and it changes a lot the final ownership you can get. And also, think about it. What is the problem with seed investors? Is that seed investors, anyone can be a seed investor because you don't need a lot of money. This is why it's a level where there is the most crap investors. Because anyone can put 100,000 in the company. It's not a big deal. Like you have a little bit money on the side, you can become an angel. Well, look at me. So if I can become an angel, everyone can become an angel and create a situation where you never know who is good or who is bad. So one of the things you need to have in mind is that skipping the seed is one of the ways to keep you on market and to impeach you of being surrounded by very toxic investors. So that was about how to deal with your finance if you're a bootstrapped company. Now the question is, what about your hiring? How to hire in that market and how to hire without the meaning of a fundraising. So the first thing is that you need to understand that hiring should be as slow as possible in pre-product market fit. And you need to hire very, very carefully and only hire people you highly trust and only people that are highly skilled. And hiring is never a solution to your problems. And I will never say that enough, is that what happened in most of the startups is that people think that hiring will solve their problem. But most of the time, hiring don't solve any problem. It creates more problems. And being slow about the right kind of hiring is better. So the very concrete situation is you are looking for someone, you did not find the perfect mate, and you are like, okay, I have no other choice than hiring it. It's better to wait a month, 2 months, 3 months, and get the right person than hiring just for hire. It's very important. Hire always to something that you understand. And that also is very counterintuitive. But you should never hire someone to do something you don't know how to do. I'm not saying that you need to know how to do everything well. What I'm saying is that every function inside your company, you should have done it seriously at least once and to a level where you are comfortable enough to know what people need to achieve in that position. And that's the job of co-founders. It's to do collectively everything until a point where they will hire people that are better than them. But you need to do it first yourself. Very important. Never hire for something you did not do yourself first, because you will never know if someone is good or not at a job if you cannot compare him to you. Because having the opportunity to compare to you help you to build some, be comfortable about what he's doing, how he's doing it, and if it's good or not. And the corollary of that is that, and I know it can seem weird as a sentence, is that you should delegate first everything you are the best at. And people do the opposite. They keep for themselves what they are good at, and they delegate what they are not good at. It's the worst management strategy. Because if you delegate something you are good at, you know how to keep an eye on it. And you know how to keep people at the level, and you know if what they are doing is good or no, because you can compare to yourself. And the easy solution is always to do it yourself, but you will not scale if you do everything yourself. So the first thing you should delegate in a company is everything you are good at, because it will be a strong function, and you can focus your attention at what you are not good at, and find a way to delegate that as well. Because the ultimate goal on the end game is to delegate everything. But if you do the opposite, you will keep everything good for yourself. You will not have anyone grow in functions that are important, because most of the time what you are good at are things that are important for your company. And so you will become the bottleneck of your startup. And that is even more true if you bootstrap and fundraising. Because at least if you fundraise a lot, you have a lot of time to make mistakes and to survive that mistake. If you bootstrap, you cannot do any management mistake. That's one of the constraints of bootstrapping, is that every mistake costs so much that you be sure that you are not doing any management mistake. If you bootstrap, be aware of interns. It's worse than black cats. Interns don't provide anything in the startups. Let's be realistic with that. Interns are great in growing environment. Post-product market fit, we are in an economy where we need interns. And in Europe, we have such crazy policy about interns that it hurt the growth of a lot of our startups. But that's another subject. Before product market fit, and especially if you are bootstrap and you hire interns, it's the best way to die. Because you don't know what you are doing, and you are asking to someone that don't know to do anything to do it on your behalf. You see, it doesn't work. Like, everybody's smiling for a reason, because we all know what it means. And it's so obvious that hiring in interns make you feel comfortable. Like, I see that in so many companies. Like, you ask them, what did you do this week? Oh, we interview interns. And of course, it's fun. You know, you play boss, and you can play bossy. And you are like, yeah, you can ask questions and show your power and pretend that you have a cool startup and blah, 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 and being co-working space, blah, blah, blah. But you are nothing. Like, you have to realize that you should not take an intern if you cannot train him very fast. And the only way to train someone fast is to know exactly what you are looking for and what he will do. And at that level, interns are very decent, cheap labor force. That's true. But until that moment, it's not. It's a toxic labor force that will drive you crazy and don't make anything successful in your company. So be very careful with interns. It doesn't make any sense to take interns too early. Don't do stupid things. If you bootstrap your company, again, you need to be very, very efficient about how you outsource things and how you take everything that don't provide value for your company, outsource. So each time you understand the process, each time you understand something manual, each time you did something yourself and you see that it's repetitive as a task, you should find a way to automate that, or to find someone, a provider for cheap labor country that will do it. Again, it's even more important as bootstrap, because every hours you will save are hours where you can find more clients, where you can grow faster, and there is not such a thing as a small saving. So you should be obsessed about optimizing every process. And one of the good ways to do that is that you should draw every process of your company and see how you can optimize them. If you bootstrap your company, you need to understand that you will be always dead alive. I mean, you will be always in a situation where your cash position will be very, very low, and you don't have any comfort, and you don't know how you will survive next week. And that can be very, very stressful. And if it's your first time, it can be horrible. You will see after doing it multiple times, it becomes easy. And maybe I can tell you a story about that. You know, the first time I received a letter from the bank because I was in debt, I was so scared. Because you receive a letter and you are like, oh my God, I did something wrong, and you try to find money to don't be in debt anymore. And one day, you know, you are in this kind of situation where you receive a letter and you cannot do anything. So you receive a second letter that is harsh, more harsh than the first one. And you receive a third letter, and a fourth letter, and a phone call, and a meeting. And you don't have money, so, you know, like, what can they do? And at the end, you meet a very nice guy that tries to find an agreement. Because the process is designed in 3 steps. Scare you, be nice, go to jail. But before the go to jail step, you have the be nice. Because they are like, okay, we cannot pay, let's try to figure out something to do. And actually, if you understand that you have the power of your banks, you can be very, very smart with your bank account management. For example, the family did not spend a day below 0 for 2 years. We did not add any single day over 0 during 2 years. We was always below 0. And we survived. And I can tell you our banker is not sleeping well. He was watching the video every week, and I was even doing jokes about that. And he was like, I saw you joke about myself. I don't like that. So now it's in English, I can go. It's important to understand that you owe nothing to your bank. So a simple rule, never put yourself in a personal risk. That's the limit. You should really say, there is my company, it can be 1,000% at risk, myself, no. So never accept any personal loan. Never accept any personal guarantee. For example, the banker wanted that we personally guarantee the family. We never signed any paper. Like they've sent something like 100 letters, we never signed them. And you should be really, really tough on that, and you should always resist. It's better to die than put yourself at risk. But saying that, you should be hardcore with your banks. Like you're hardcore with everyone around you. Because that level of intensity is necessary to build something strong. One of the things as a bootstrap strategy that a lot of entrepreneurs do at mistake is that they try to convince strangers before convincing their friends. So I don't know why. It's, you know, sometimes I do the joke like, do you feel so uncomfortable about what you do that you don't want to talk to your friends? So let's say you start a B2C company and you try to buy ads instead of convincing one by one every single friend on your Facebook. If your friends are not users, why any stranger will be? And it works also in B2B. Like, you know, anyone that is doing a B2B company has some previous working relationship. And they do a product and they are like, let's sell it. And you're like, yeah, let's go to talk to your colleague. Let's go to talk to your friends. And they're like, no, they are not really the target. They are not really the user, blah, blah, blah. Because they are ashamed. There is no way to bootstrap a company than your own network. And your own network is very, very powerful. Like if you take Menu Next Door, for example, a company that is doing a peer-to-peer food service in-house, takeaway experience, it's incredible how they grew with their own organic network. Like the guy had 1,000 friends on Facebook, and he convinced one single friend after the other to buy a meal. And I'm not kidding. Like the guy opened a Facebook group, he did not open an app, he cooked himself with his best friend, and he went to his friend's house one by one, take money from the end, and make them post on Facebook the picture. He was even taking their phone, putting the picture, and inviting every single friend in the group, and after going to every single house, and he did that so much, with so much intensity, that now he's doing 8,000 meals a week in Brussels. And the company is 6 months old. 8,000 meals a week. You don't get to that in 6 months by doing a product and waiting that people come. At the beginning, you need to force them. You need to be so aggressive that you have this. Paul Graham talked about the collision brother. You know, they created Stripe, And they say that their strategy was each time, you know, the usual talk between founders is, oh, I have a product. Oh, that's cool. What does it do? I do a payment solution. Oh, that's nice. I should try it. And it will end up like that. And it will say, I will send you an email with a demo. Stripe is not like that. They say, oh, you want to try it? Open your computer. I will install for you. That's called the collision methodology. That's the only way to bootstrap a company. You need to go strong. You need, like, if you believe in what you do, your friends should be the first fan. And if your friends are not, it's because you are not a good seller. And if you are not a good seller, you will never sell anything. And we all have people in our network. We all have a starting point. And it's really important to leverage that. Because after you can use them as satisfaction, social proof, things that will help you to provide feedback to the other clients. So there is not such a thing than focusing on people you know to get the first traction. It's much better than stranger that doesn't know you. What is the return on investment of all this bootstrapping strategy? Is that if you do it right, if you keep your finance tight, if you grow your product strong, if you are in a position where everything you do as a rational to reach a milestone and a KPI that make you feel comfortable, you will skip the first fundraise and the valuation of your company will be much higher because you will have a very high goodwill. So what is the goodwill? The goodwill is, because at the beginning, companies are evaluated like that. So people try to find rational to evaluate you. If you build client, customer, team, all of that, without any external resource, your goodwill will be really, really high. And the return on investment of this effort will be really, really high. Because if you fundraise 500,000 and you build something, people will evaluate you in a ratio between what money you get and what you did. But if you did anything with nothing, the multiple of valuation will be much higher. And I think people underestimate that. They underestimate the effect that it has on people when you build something from the ground, from zero, and you reach to a point where it's impressive. And when you go and enter in fundraising mode with that, it's very different than anything else you can have done. And also, I just want to finish on something that will be a good transition to the next steps of our lessons, is that the only way to know if you're on track or not is to have a KPI dashboard. If you fundraise, you can not track your KPI because it's just a budget allocation. But if you did not fundraise, and again, sorry, don't understand that you should do that, but you can survive of doing that. But if you are bootstrapping and you don't track your KPI, you will die very quick. Because you will never know if what you do is working or not. And building your KPI dashboard should be a very important job very early on, as soon as you start to sell. Because you should keep on track if what you are doing get profit and return on investment or not. So when is the right time to end bootstrapping? Like when you will be in a situation where you can decide that is the right moment to fundraise. I think asking this question should be about understanding that you don't decide when you fundraise. I call that the childhood moment with entrepreneurs. You know, when you are a child, one of the very common sentences that every child say to their mom or dad is, "I'm hungry, I want to eat." And you know, there is a time where you give food, and at a certain point of time, you have this answer that is so horrible. It's not time to eat. Like, I remember that. It's one of my big single moments of traumatized. What? I don't decide when I eat? Like, someone can decide that for me? There is time to eat. And why? Because there is external social constraint on you. And that external social constraint is exactly the same thing with fundraising. Every entrepreneur that starts always have a big plan. I will do my product, my MVP, and in 6 months I will fundraise, and in 12 months I will launch, and blah, blah, blah. But that plan is crap, because that plan is built on the idea that what you decide is what people expect outside. And the secret I have to tell you is that no one is waiting for you. Like, there is not a line of people that are waiting and like, oh my God, it's launching. Wow, we are waiting that forever. Oh, you want money now? No, later? Oh, please tell us. We are ready to make a check. No, it doesn't work like that. Like, the day you decide to fundraise maybe can be not the day people decide to invest. So what is a good moment to end bootstrapping is the moment bootstrapping ends. It means that you should not look for fundraising. You should just put yourself in a position where fundraising becomes obvious. And you know, if you look at the example I gave you at the beginning, most of them fundraise not because they decided to fundraise, but because investors start to chase them down, and very hard. And I think that if people have more that goal in mind, you know, more that idea that the goal is not to fundraise, but be chased for fundraise, it will change everything they do about their company, and it will change their own psychology about what it means to build a startup. Not so much about building a business plan, but much more about building a good product and get revenue. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that works when you know your business model
No.
like early, you know?
No.
Like say if they get
No.
revenue that they can...
No, 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 no. There's a difference between a business model and a revenue model. It's not because you are bootstrapping that you have no thousand of opportunity of revenue, and it's not because you are bootstrapping that it will be your end business model. Like, again, building a right business model can take forever. But there is always an obvious way to make money. Always. Like, give me a company, give me an example of a company that don't have the opportunity to get revenue easy. I mean easy in the sense of psychologically easy, not easy in the sense of executing. Give me an example. Yeah, why everyone thinks that that is a reality? Why everyone thinks that, like, why so many entrepreneurs tell you things like, oh, I don't focus on revenue, it will come later? Why? Like, what should be a company anything else than an institution that makes money? How can be the definition of a company something else than an institution that makes money?
If you want to do something and you want to monetize a database and you know you have to reach some point just to monetize it, so before you have to find other ways, and so
but
getting revenues is not focusing.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that you cannot get opportunity of revenue on your database. Again, Facebook took 6 years, 5 years to get the ads set up. That doesn't mean that when they needed money on the first year, they did not put casino ads. There is a big difference between opportunity and strategy. Like, the goal of bootstrapping is to survive until a point where it makes sense that you don't care about revenue. And you don't care to focus on that. But there is not such a moment like you don't know how to make money. After there is a lot of difficulty, like, it's not easy, it's not unlimited money, most of the time it's cheap, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that people think that there is situation where they have no way to make money is always a fake one. Because you always have one opportunity to do it.
You just said that we have to delegate what we are best at, right?
Yeah.
Why are you still here doing trainings, whereas we know that it's not for your ego, I'm telling you that, but you're good at
speaking. It's a very good question. Did you notice how many people give training in the family team? Okay, you don't watch our video, but actually half of our team are giving class and lesson online. So it doesn't mean, when you say you should delegate what you are good at, it doesn't mean that you never do what you are good at. And I think that's also a good way where everyone take teaching, you know, because you say things like, oh, you should do that, people think that you should absolutely do that. Saying that you should delegate what you are good at is not saying that you should never do what you are good at. It's saying that you should delegate what you are good at. So meaning this. So for example, who know Com here? Okay, please raise your hand up. So Com was my intern. Like, come here, it doesn't know anything about growth hacking. It didn't even know what the word growth hacking is. Like, did you see me doing any growth hacking talks? That's the point. Who know, for example, in our team, Balthazar? Okay, Balthazar was one of our failed entrepreneurs 2 years ago. So you see, like, that's what delegation is about. And you know what? The funny thing is that when I put Com first time on stage, you know what happened? We get a user harsh, how to say that, to keep it nice with Com, complain. And it's even worse than complain. But you know what is great is that I don't care. And because I didn't care, Com started to be better and better, because the problem with delegating is that people think, I will delegate something and it will work out perfectly at first. But the truth is that the first time Com gave a lesson, or the first time Balthazar gave a lesson, we deleted the video, of course, because it was horrible. And I think the people there in the room never came back at the family, and they are like, wow, that's the family? Oh my God. But it's fine, because you need to go through that. You need to go in that minus. And again, you see, we are switching in English. I'm the first one at doing a complete session in English, because that's what leaders should do in their company. Always be the first at doing something for the first time. And that's why I don't give any class in French anymore, and I give them in English, just to, so like that, everyone that insults us for my accent, at least they insult me, not my team.
I think I'm good at communication, design, and business, but I don't understand accountability. Does it mean I have to do the accountability because I can't delegate it?
Yeah, exactly. Not for a long time, but if you are bad at something, you should not stay in the dark about that. So, minus your co-founders. Again, understand that that is kind of collective responsibility. For example, Alice is bad at accounting, and she will never do accounting, and she will always stay on the shadow on that, because it's better for her. But it doesn't mean that we are good at that. We was bad at that, but a little bit less, so I took that responsibility. So when I say that, I'm talking about a complete co-founding team, because, of course, it's impossible to be 100% wide. And if you, like, this is why you have a CTO, or this is why you have a chief designer, and this is why it's good to be sometimes a little bit complementary. But if you are not complementary, you need, you know, like, to take a coin and say, okay, we will take the accounting this week and decide. And if you are alone, you should be aware that you cannot stay in the shadow on that and stay in the dark, because it's very important. And everything is important. And that's what makes the difference between entrepreneurs, is the 20% that no one wants to do. You know, one of the good analogy is, let's say you build a shirt, and it's so nice tissue, so well cut, but there is no buttons. People will be like, no one will say, oh my God, that shirt is so beautiful. There is only buttons missing. Everybody will be, why there is no buttons? And building company is exactly the same thing. People don't care of what you do well. People will always focus on what you do wrong. This is why you need to do everything to understand how to delegate well and how to make it better.
What do you think about giving your product for free at your very first users?
Good question. It's a tricky question. So I think you should never give your product for free. And I think there is nothing you should not do to get a client. So do I reply to your question? No. So it's a bit of a paradox. Like, if your product is a paid product, you should never give it for free. But having client and reference and customer is much more important than anyone paying. So that's how you should manage it, like a very hard dilemma, and you should not manage it standard. You should manage it case by case. So sometimes you will be like, okay, in that case, it makes sense to make it free because huge reputation, but no one will know. And the good way, if your product is paid, to give it for free, is to give it with a discount. Like, don't take out the money discussion. So one of the good ways, like for example, at the family, we created a new high-level B2B product that is very expensive. It's 60,000 a month for a company, so kind of high-level product. And really hard to get the first client. Because what every client asks, who is already client? So you are in this catch-21 where you are like, everyone wants to buy, but no one wants to buy because no one is the first. And they say, I will buy when someone buy, and everyone say that, and you end up turning forever and in like a nightmare and shadow, and you are like, okay, it will never end. So at one point, we took the best one. We took the one we know everybody admire, and we tell him, the price is 30,000 a month, but we will give 6 months for free. And it will be our little secret. Do you do it? And so it's a great strategy because they have a price point in mind, 60,000 a month. They know it's not free, and they leave it as a gift. Like, oh, wow, that's a gesture. 6 months for free, it's a 360,000 euro gift. So doing that, you can tell everyone, we have our first client. So you see the subtlety, okay, it's for free, but you don't tell anyone for free. Okay, it got 100% discount, but who knows, like it's not the important point. And you should always keep your price tag as something that people know. Like the worst way to give something for free is to tell someone, oh, you will use the product and it's free for the first year. And you hope that it will not be an awkward conversation in a year, but it will be a worse conversation in a year. Because maybe their expectation will be low, your expectation will be high, and you will never agree. But if you say, that's my price, and I give it for free for a year, at least people are aware of what the price is.
You spoke about traction, but could you define it? Does traction mean users, or can you have signs of traction?
In 99% of the case, traction means revenue. And in 1% of the case, it means something else. But it's really uncommon that anything else means something more than revenue in an early stage company. I love the word traction because we always forget what it means, traction. Traction is that you get tracked. It's that image that, in France, when we talk about traction, we think about something that goes up by itself. But in English, we have this image that traction needs effort. And that's why you need things that don't scale.
You were talking at the beginning about all the lies in the medias or TechCrunch or whatever. So is it any way to know more about our possible competitors or spying or something?
No, it's a good question. Look, you will never know what happened about your competitors, and you should know, and only loser benchmark. Like, you know why big corporation benchmark all day long? Because they are such a bunch of losers. Like, they don't know what is the leaders, they don't know what's leadership, so they always need to compare themselves. And look when you're a kid. Who are the kids that compare themselves all the time long? It's the worst kid. Like, how much did you get in the math class? How tall are you? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you're a startup, you should have your own KPI of success, and you should not need anyone else to tell you what is successful and what is not. And the only way to do that is to push harder. Like exactly like in sport. Like bad people in sport, they run with a bunch of people and they try to be first in that group. Good people in sport, they take 5 minutes less on their time every other week, and they try to keep at that level and always push higher until the point they break. And same thing with a company. You can tell yourself, oh, I'm good because that startup is doing bad and I'm doing better. And you will both be losers. Or you can tell yourself, every week I will do better and it will never end. And sky is the limit. It's a very different mindset. And this is why you should never look at your competition, because looking at your competition is comparing your inside to the outside. And see, if your competitors are good at marketing, you can be worried for nothing. I should not, yeah. We have a company called Each, and they was competing against a company called Jump. And Jump now, the ex-CEO of Jump and ex-number 2 of Jump are working for Menu Next Door now because they failed. And every single day we was competing about them, each team was always telling me, oh my God, they are so big. They are doing a fundraising. We are nowhere. They are everywhere. They have so much articles. And I always told them the same thing. I don't want to hear about Jump. Like one day I told them, if you tell me again about Jump, I will kick you out of the family. Like the only thing I want to know is what is your weekly growth, and you keep your weekly growth at more than 7%. The CEO of Jump now is a friend, she's here, and we was talking together. And she told me, oh, by the way, what are the numbers of each? And I told her they are doing that amount of rides. And she told me, oh my God, they are 25 bigger than us. And I told her, you should go and tell them that. They will be happy. Because they spent 2 years thinking you was such a big deal, and I know they was not, because I know how it works. I know to recognize fake companies, and they was fake because that was their job, to say fake things in the press. And when you are, like, when you saw as many deals as I saw, like, you have this detector for bullshit. Like, I can look at like, you know, the biggest lie is about acquisition. You don't imagine how many people sold their company and they sold nothing. Like, they didn't even get the euro from the deal. But they are in the press and they go on every stage and say, oh, I'm a successful entrepreneur, I sold my company to XYZ. But the truth is that you can tell from the wording of how it's right if it's fake or not. But you need a lot of experience for that. And that's not the kind of experience an entrepreneur should focus on. This is why looking at competition is the worst decision you can take as an entrepreneur. You should focus on yourself and only yourself, and you should have your own definition of success and nothing else.
You were talking about the fact that it was a mistake to hire people too early. What about the startups that are based on very heavy solutions that require a lot of R&D? Because obviously we don't have all the technical skills we will need to build a high-tech solution. Okay,
give me one example of a startup that was in this situation and succeed. Only one.
I was thinking to Facebook, to your previous example.
Okay, who built the first version of Facebook? Mark Zuckerberg. And how many users he got by himself before hiring anyone? 10,000. And how long did he push the company by himself with only his friends? 100,000. So I'm not saying that they did not hire top engineers after that, but they reached 100,000 user mark. In a time, by the way, that is much harder than now to reach that level of users. So let's face it, you don't have the internal capacity of doing something, you are dead. Like everyone that thinks he has an idea and he will find someone technical to make that idea is living a dream. He never worked and he will never work. And I can give you a very simple story. I have a great idea. Free unlimited energy for everyone. I want to disrupt energy forever. And I have a very simple solution for that. It's called fusion. Fusion is a nuclear solution that doesn't have any of the downside of traditional nuclear solution, only upside, ecological, no radiation, and unlimited, almost free energy for everyone. In less than 10 years, with $1 billion, I can raise to a point where 90% of the energy produced on Earth will be via fusion. Do you like the pitch? I love the pitch. I only need $1 billion and free PhD as an intern. Why? Because I don't have the product. You know, I will take a PhD in energy and they will build that for me. But I have the money and I have the idea. If I tell you that, you will be like, that guy is crazy. There is no way an intern has any idea of how to do that. But if you look at most entrepreneurs that are looking for technical people, that's exactly what they are doing. They are coming and say, I have this great idea, I just need someone to do it. But it's like saying, oh, I can cook that, I just need someone to cook it. And you will be like, yeah, but if you don't cook it, someone cook it, and you will not be the cook. And with entrepreneurs, the same thing. And that is because we had this generation of businessmen that was not able to build things by themselves, and they took people as slaves. But that's the difference between our generation and their generation. In the generation of Bernard Tapie, Bernard Arnault, and every successful French businessman, you can have slaves for free. And people will not realize. They will build things incredible for you and will tell you, you are the boss, you are the entrepreneur, you are incredible. But now these people look at you and say, who are you? Like, why I will work for someone that doesn't know what he's doing? And this is why it became so hard to find a technical co-founder. Because now technical co-founders are in this room and they build their own startup themselves. So if you don't have anything to bring to the table other than your idea or your vision, you will never be able to find anyone that works out. And this is why hiring doesn't work. Sometimes friendship works because you have someone technical without someone technical that built something together and is their common baby. But the idea that someone non-technical can take someone technical as an employee is really a dream. Please, just behind you.
No, you just answered my question. I wanted to ask, what if that tech person is your co-founder? I mean,
yeah, of course, you can have great co-founding team like that, but it will be a co-founder. It will not be an employee. There's a big difference between having an employee and a co-founder. And by the way, the equity split, like for the moment, you are lucky if it's 50-50. Let's see in 10 years if it's not the opposite way around. Like, you know, if you look at a country like France, the problem is that engineering schools are so bad at training the people at anything else than coding and engineering. This is why you still have like this kind of weird opportunity where you can take a genius and he doesn't know how to speak and doesn't know how to articulate his idea. And you can have business people that do the work. Like, give us 10 years of videos, train, class. Like, if you look at 42, for example, they are watching the family video all day long. And when you see the effect on entrepreneurs that come, they don't feel that they need anyone. Because they build their self-confidence, they learn a lot of things, and they know how to build things with the end. The good news is that in the next 10 years, it will be also the other way around. Because that's what is funny about that story, is that if things are still going like that, in 10 years, anyone non-technical will be as powerful as someone technical. Because the level of the tools that are happening in the world are so good. Like, for example, I invite you all to go to look at a company called Zapier and watch what Zapier is about. It helps you automate workflow. And anyone now without any programming skills can use it. It's Z-A-P-I-E-R, Zapier. And it even became programmable a few weeks ago. So the powerful solutions that are developed right now for non-technical people and the fact that technical people are becoming more manageable, we are going to have this kind of fusion and not distance between technical profile and non-technical profile.
It's about the branding name. Is it important when you start to really get the right name from the beginning, or you can maybe just
It's better than getting the wrong name.
Yeah, of course. But if you don't have the right name, should you stop and wait until or start and then change along the way?
One of my favorite story around that is his brother story. Like, so that guy brother built a company called My Secret Garden. So it's a security solution for documents, and it was called My Secret Garden. In English, My Secret Garden means pussy. Yeah. So you imagine pitching that in English in front of American investors. So I'm here to introduce you My Secret Garden. Really, sir? It changed name and he survived and sold his company very successfully. So asking if it's important to get it right, it's not a good question, because of course, who can tell you that it's not important? Of course, it's better to get right than wrong. Now, having the wrong name never killed anyone.
So you can change along the way.
Of course, of course. Covoiturage.fr, my God. BlaBlaCar, are you kidding? It's the best name on earth. Okay, what does it mean? They look for during 10 years about how to make a ride sharing works well. So at beginning, they had basic solution, like if you want that the riding goes well, you need people coming from the same social environment. Did not work. Like, it was random. Sometimes people like them, sometimes didn't like them. After they tried, another feature was, oh, you will say which kind of music do you like, and we will match people through music. Did not work. And the level of satisfaction inside the car was totally random. And one day, they got the key feature, is that when you travel on BlaBlaCar, you can tell about yourself if you are blah, 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 or blah, 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 blah. Because the single point of unsatisfaction between people was the level of noise speaking inside the car. Some people like to don't talk and just say hi and go. And some people like to talk so much. And during the day, they installed that feature. The level of satisfaction, NPS, reached more than 90%. And the level of complaint around the ride decreased. This is why it's best name on earth, because it's their key feature. So even, like, you know, a good name is not a name that you will like and you don't like, and because no name is unanimous. People like, people don't like. A good name is a name you can tell a story about. Same thing with the family. Like when we created the family, I think 90% of the people, even some specialists here, I have a friend that has a job do that, finding them. She told me it's horrible. Like, you don't imagine, people don't like their family. It's an idea of tradition. It's so Catholic, blah, blah, blah. But we became such a great family because we put story, we put life, and I don't think anyone now wants to hear anything else than that name talking about us, because we'll live in that name. So don't think that finding a name for a startup, it's a question of, there is not a name. There is the life you put in. And it's much more important than the name. And this is why BlaBlaCar is such a good name. Because every time they meet someone, they can explain that story. And that is a huge asset.
Do you think that it's possible to scale a company without investor money and stay in bootstrapping mode for forever?
So it's a funny story why GitHub fundraise. GitHub fundraised because they realized that their cash balance was so low that if any accident happened, they will bankrupt. So they scaled to a point where their payroll and everything, like for example, they calculate that if they had 2 weeks out of business, they cannot survive that. So for them, fundraising was not a question of development or growth, it was a question of protecting assets. So also a second thing that you should be aware of is that most of the fundraising you hear about, when it's very, very big numbers, are most of the time not only fundraising, they are also cash out money for the funders. So for example, Squarespace fundraise. So Squarespace is who knows Squarespace here? Everyone? Yeah, no. It's a tool that you can use to build website. They reach 25 million revenue, 10 million profit. Bootstrap without any external funding. And when the investor put the money inside the company, they did not put a single dollar inside the company. Everything went to the pocket of the founder. It was a secondary. It was not a primary. So primary money go to the company. Secondary, the money go to the pocket of founder or shareholder or investors, blah, blah. So a lot of fundraising you hear, like GitHub, I don't know the exact number of GitHub, but I'm sure 1 billion did not go to the bank account of the company. I don't remember the amount. But I'm sure 50 million or 60 million went also to the pocket. So the fundraising is also a way to take some money out of the table and put yourself safe. Now, you have this incredible example of companies that never fundraise until get acquired. Like, Microsoft was a case of bootstrap company, a very big bootstrap company. When Microsoft get in IPO, Bill Gates was owning 60% of the company. Iliad, they fundraised but late. Xavier Niel get a huge ownership inside Iliad. So yeah, of course it's possible. It's just that it become, like never fundraise become a hard choice because there is so many free money available now in the world. That was not the case 20 years ago. So that's why 20 years ago it was more common to never fundraise than now because it's like, you have to understand that now you have a business growing and going well, you will have a lot of people that want to give you money because they don't know where to put their money. So it can seem weird, but you don't imagine like, for example, you know, there is no bank in the world that will accept any client with more than $1 billion. Like if you look, Apple, Apple is running their own bank for their cash deposit. They open their own bank. They are a bank license provider for themselves. Because no bank will accept to have a client like Apple. Because if Apple say, oh, we need to wire 15 billion today to that account, it can just bankrupt the company. Because they will not have the liquidity to get that money. So that's why there's so many money to invest, is because it's hard to put the money out of market right now.
Comment est-ce qu'on fait pour définir le prix d'un produit?
Ah, price. So there is one very sure and good strategy to get the price right. Price are dynamics. If you are too low, you can go up. If you are too up, you can go low. So stop to think about that. Just get the price, go out and see how it works. Like I don't know why so many people turn their mind and brainstorm for a price when you know that it's something very natural to get a price. You know, and one of the best way to get a price is just to negotiate. You know, like last time I had a startup. They was telling me, "Oh, my price is that," and I told them, "No, I think your price should be that." And they say, "Yeah, are you sure?" Yeah. In my experience, it works much better at that price level. It was 3 times higher. And they told me, wow, our conversion rate increased. How did you know that it was the right price? I said, I didn't know. I said something like that and try to double it again. And they double it again and the conversion rate decreased. So I say, okay, go back. So, you know, I learned that because I worked in a company that bought a parking, and I was amazed to know how you define the price in a parking lot. You know how you do? You open a parking, and you know, like parking people go around and they see the price and they decide if they go in or not. And so the first day you open the parking, you say it's $500 a spot, an hour. And every day you decrease 10%. And you look how much percentage of your parking is used. And when you get to 100%, you get the right price. And that's how parking prices are set up. And it works for many, many cases. So don't, and you know what? It never, like, some people say, oh, I sell too expensive, this is why I don't have clients, and they don't decrease the price, and you're like, why you don't decrease the price? Because they know that actually that's not the real reason. The real reason is that the product sucks. So at the end, you don't have any secret. If your product is not extraordinary, no one will use it. And it's hard to do a good product. So that's where the game is unfair. It's like cooking well is hard. You know, it's exactly the same thing. Like I can cook and you will see it will be good or bad, and someone will cook better, and you will always find someone that cooks better. Entrepreneurship is the same thing. You will always find a better cook. So the only thing you can do is work harder.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I have a prospect who doesn't want to be my client, but wants to invest in my company. Do I have a problem, or?
Why he doesn't want to be your client?
I don't know. But he says he doesn't need me, but he wants to invest in my company.
Okay.
Is it a good or bad investor?
I think the good question to ask him is, who should be my client if it's not you? And if he makes a smart answer and he learns you something, he's a good investor. If he's not teaching you anything, he's a bad investor. It's easy. Okay. Because, okay, maybe he understands something about you that you did not get yourself. In that case, he's a good investor. Or maybe he's just a random guy that has way too much money and he wants to play around. And in that case, forget it. So what do you want to say? Like, yeah. By the way, so many people love to tell people that they can invest and they never invest because they love the feeling of talking about investment. Little bit like with sex, you know, there is some people that talk all day long about that, but they never do anything. Same thing. Like you don't imagine how many Tinder investors you have. They swipe right on everyone, and at the end they decide if they do something or not, and they never do something. So pay attention also to that. Like, it's not because someone say I can invest that he will invest.
Thanks.
How did you have Bootstrap, the family? Can you tell us the story? Without money, without cash?
Yeah. So we started the family with 100 euro. So first, lot of tricks and lot of tips. So for example, instead of taking an office, Alice and I was living in an apartment that was used as an office. So our rent become our office. So doing the family or not, we need a place to live. So it was a good optimization. And Alice had an apartment, she put it on Airbnb. So she was making money, putting her apartment on Airbnb and living in the office. So you see, first tip. The second thing we was doing is that the apartment was big enough so we can put room on Airbnb, and we was sleeping in the living room. And so we was making more money with the room as an asset because the office was the asset. So it was like we was doing 3,000 or 4,000 a month, the 3-4 months. It was more than enough to eat, have the first intern, things like that. And what? Before product market fit. That's the point. We had product market fit day one. Because we launched the family, and one day after we had 300 startups applying. So like it was obvious that the product market fit was here. So after that, we started to do events and consulting. Consulting was horrible, but making some money from it. And the good thing is that we was crazy enough to talk bad to the client we was consulting for. So it was this kind of relationship where you tell people, you will pay me and I will tell you your shit. And people, what? So we started to lose every consulting gig we had. It was a good thing. There was a defining moment, is that we was growing on startup side bigger and bigger, only doing money with opportunity like that. And we was crazy, you know, like, for example, I have a friend that wanted to sell his company to SNCF. So I told him I can introduce you to the CEO of SNCF, and if it works, I'd take a commission. And we did money like that. Of course, we didn't know the CEO of SNCF, but we was like, yeah, we'll send him an email and he will reply. He did not reply. So we took everyone we know that had friends working at SNCF, and we had them forward the same email to the CEO of SNCF, and he received 500 emails. So eventually he called me and he was like, can you stop? And I was like, only if you listen me, sir. And I was like, I need only 5 minutes with you over the phone. And we saw him the next day, and the company gets sold. And I think we did 100,000 K with that. And so after 6 months, because of all this craziness and traction, blah, 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 we fundraised our first round. It is funny because when we fundraised, we had 6 months of cash because we spent the cash very fast. And we was like, yeah, what to do? And we wanted to change place because it became too small. So in 9 months, the apartment was way too small. And we visited that place here. And when we visited that place, we was looking for 400 meters square. And here it's 1,200 meters square. And the guy told us, if you want to take that place, you need to sign a 200,000 check. And we had 4,000 on the bank account, and the overdraw authorization of 50,000. And so what did we do with Alice? Alice was like, Oussama, I feel it. That's our place. Like, I can tell you, there's so good vibes. And I was like, yeah, but it's 30,000. Yeah, but we will find the money. Fuck it. I was like, yeah, fuck it. And I took the, you know, the check slipped, and I wrote a check. So first tips, because we did not have the money, I need to have time. So instead of, so it was in March 2014, and I wrote the check and I put March 2013. So the check went to the bank, and because one check is 1 year limit, it get back to him. So he get deposit, accepted, refused because of the date, so no overdraft on your account. Very good tips. And it get back to him. And that took 4 weeks. Because banks are so slow in that process that we had 4 weeks. And after, so he came and say, oh, you made a mistake on the date. Oh, really? Oh, you know, I'm such a stupid, huh? And so I did another check, and that time So after 4 weeks, we had an idea of what to do. We created Coup d'Etat, and we wanted to sell Coup d'Etat. So we did a website, was pitching all over the place, and we was telling everyone there is a secret location of Coup d'Etat. And people was like, wow, really, secret location? Blah. I said, yeah, but it's very expensive to access it. It will also be a club, blah, blah, blah. And so we needed 3 weeks more to sell it. So I did another check, and that time, of course, the guy looked at the check 3 times. You know, like, even if he did not think that I did that on purpose, it was like, that guy is so stupid that now I will check everything. So the check gone, and what I did is that I called the bank, and I told them, you know, there is a check that will come on the bank account, and there is one procedure you can use to put it on hold for 2 weeks. And that procedure is called payment in waiting. So if you, it's a very old banking procedure. If you can prove that you will have in front of the check the money to pay the check, and if you can give confidence to the bank to that, she cannot accept or refuse the check for 2 weeks. And she can put the check on hold for 2 weeks, and they hate to do that. And so it was a negotiation thing. It was like, look, you love us, the family is doing great, we need that place, we don't have the cash yet, but I need only 2 weeks. So put it on hold for 2 weeks. So she put the check on hold, and the guy was calling his bank every day why the check doesn't appear on his bank account. But the reason was not there's no money, because he was on hold. So he was thinking that his bank has a problem. And the guy was, so we was doing a visit for the worker, and the guy was like, oh my God, banks are so horrible. Like the check, if they don't know where it is, it doesn't appear on the bank account. I say, it's so strange because we have been debit of the check. Like. Poor guy. So in 2 weeks, we built Coup d'Etat. We sold for 250,000. The money started to come on the account. I think we had something like 110. And it was not enough for the check, but because money was coming every day, the bank just said, okay, forget it. We will just take it. And the problem is that it was great. We have 250 euro of revenue, 200 for guaranteed deposit, but it was empty. Like here, it was like all was closed, and there was nothing, and it was ugly. And you have to see like the first, like if you watch Coup d'Etat video, you will see that the first video, you know, there is nothing on the ground, and there was so much dust that people that had paid 2,500 they came in that dust place. And you know, some people started to complain, like, what is that, blah. And I was like, are you an entrepreneur or not? That's part of the adventure. Always keep your client on track. So what happened is that we needed more money, and we cannot do 10 Coup d'Etat. So the good thing is because we took the place, and because we did Coup d'Etat, and because we did 250 in 4 weeks, we fundraised $1 million in 3 weeks. Because what I was doing is that I was taking investor, I was making a visit, and I was thinking we took that with our revenue, and we need money for, you know, working and furniture and blah, blah. And everybody was going down and making a check. It was like, these people are crazy and they will be successful, because it was way too big for us. And that's the only way to grow, is that sometimes you need to go one step further. But now I tell that the funny way. The truth is that during that 7 weeks, no one in our team slept. And I never have been stressed like these 7 weeks. Like, you know, Alice was, so sometimes it was 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. And, you know, we were sending emails and talking to everyone end by end to convince them to buy Coup d'Etat. And Alice was like, you know, OUSSAMA, maybe that time we went too far. And I was like, no, of course not. And in my mind, I was like, of course we went way too far. So that's the only way. And that's why you need a great team, because you need people to cheer you up each other, because if not, you die. And everyone that lived that in our team at the moment has a very, very cherishful moment of that. It was, you know, at that time we had 3 employees, and I remember telling them, you know, I have to tell you something. In 4 weeks, I have no idea how I pay your salary. If you want to leave, is now. And people were like, what do you mean? Yeah, with Alice, we find a new office and we sign, and yeah, we did a check. So if it does go well, it's fine. But if it doesn't go well, we don't have any money to pay your salary. And people was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Thank you to tell me. and that's the kind of employee you can have at the beginning. Like, I think now in the team, if I told that to people, people will burn us. You know, like it will not be the same kind of spirit.
On the coup d'etat landing page, you put some tweets as testimonials.
Yeah.
Did you fake it until you make it, or
no? It was all true. But it was not testimonial about coup d'etat, it was testimonial about our videos online. Yeah. But all of them was real. Okay. It was just a smart use, a deliberate use of them. Of course, these people did not have pay to listen to us. But they was happy of what they hear. So it was not a total fake, but it was a smart use of our community.
Did you ask them to write?
Yeah, sure. No, I know. It was, no, because it's tweet. That's a good thing with tweets, that you can track them, and there was old tweet. So we did not ask them to write it. We asked them to put it online and to use it in coup d'etat, even if the tweet was not for coup d'etat. And they was comfortable with that. But the tweet was real. Thank you. See you soon.
Que la famille.